Okay, so we are here with Lawrence Lessig, and it is the Killswitch premiere in Seattle. Thank you so much for taking the time. So I just want to start off by asking, quite simply, where are you here?
So this is a very important film. It was a great opportunity to introduce it to a critical community for this reform movement. So I flew out this morning to be able to present tonight and go back tomorrow morning.
And of course, your schedule is insane. I don't know how you do it all. So it's being posed as the sort of getting money out and how that coincides with American media. What is that connection for you?
Well, I think the most important thing to recognize about the way in which money affects politics is the concentration of funders. The number of relevant funders, people who give enough money to matter, is a tiny, tiny fraction of the 1%. And what that means is we've set up this fundamentally unequal process for representing Americans. We first have politicians spend half their time obsessively focused on a fraction of the 1%, so they raise the money they need to run for office, and then presumptively they spend the rest of their time thinking about us. But that is a completely corrupted process for what the framers imagined a representative democracy would be, and that's the thing to keep focused on, how we concentrate the funding of elections.
And how does that bleed into the idea of digital rights and the power of the internet?
Well, the internet has the potential. Indeed, I think it's the only tool we've got to be able to push back against this structure of concentrated power. And many of the issues that the internet is struggling with, whether it's the fight against network neutrality, or it's the TPP, or any of the other issues about making the internet accessible and guaranteeing access and privacy in that context, are issues that are fundamentally affected by the corruption of our political process. So the internet both depends on fixing this problem and is the only thing we've got that could fix this problem.
And of course, the interests of the 0.1% are fighting against an open and free internet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the interest of business is always to concentrate its influence and in a kind of obvious way to protect itself against competitors in the next generation. And the way they do that is both to corrupt government and also to corrupt the structures of the way the competitive market is supposed to operate. The internet, in its architecture, embedded this open platform for competition and access. And obviously there's a big push to compromise that platform.
Where do you feel that we're at right now, since net neutrality passed, but we're looking at the TPP? Where do you feel that we're at in the fight for digital rights and an open and free internet?
Well, I'm incredibly excited. The internet's kind of on a roll. If you think of like SOPA and then network neutrality and the fight against TPP and the fight to stop the Patriot Act from being renewed, these are an incredible series of victories. And what's happening is, as each of these victories occurs, the capacity of the network to organize and to actually be effective is growing. And so my hope is that through this practice of increasing success, we can get to a place where the net is able to take on what is, I think, the ultimate, most difficult but most important fight.
And speaking of like the fight for digital rights, or indeed to get money out, there seem to be different efforts that are being highlighted tonight. You have organizations like New Hampshire Rebellion, and of course you have the Mayday PAC. Marianne Williamson ran for office, but you also have the Backbone campaign and Occupy.com. How do you feel that this legislative path and this activist path, how do you feel that those need to combine to push this issue forward?
I'm a big believer in lots of different groups pushing in lots of different ways. We can't imagine, there could never be a successful single movement with a single leader because there's such a diversity in America that needs to be able to identify and connect with a vision of the movement that's closest to them, and that's fine. I don't think what we need here is a commander-in-chief. We need more of a therapist-in-chief, somebody who can talk the movement along and coordinate, not so much in lockstep, but in sympathy, the different pressures that have to be brought to bear to bring about the kind of change that we want.
So what would you say to somebody who might be on the fence about activism or isn't currently involved? Is there sort of like a checklist on how to help push us forward, particularly with an election year coming up and this issue of money in politics being so central?
Well, I think 2016 is going to be a critical year. And it's a critical year especially for younger people. If you think of every major problem that we as a nation cannot address, whether it's climate change or the debt or the economy that is stalled or healthcare that's still wildly too expensive, these are all problems that really affect the youth primarily, not really people my generation. I mean, climate change is terrible. I am absolutely committed to the need to address it. But, I'm going to be long gone before it manifests itself in a way that would really affect day-to-day life for me. But my kids will be directly affected by this. So I think the thing that people need to recognize if they're not engaged is that that's part of the plan for them not to be engaged. Because if they were engaged, then my generation couldn't pass off the cost of our excess to you and your generation, right? So the point is to recognize not just the idealism, because there's lots of idealism, but the interest, the self-interest, the generational interest, the interest in the future, to have a future, which right now, the way my generation has screwed things up, I'm quite skeptical we're going to be proud of that future.
And it's sort of a difficult thing for people in my generation. I think there's this feeling that my vote doesn't count, and why does it bother? Because I'm, the 0.1%, they're not listening to me anyway. So there's almost this cognitive dissonance. Like, I know what's happening, but I'm not going to get involved because what does it matter? What would you say to that?
Well, yeah, you're right. Your vote doesn't count. But it's like sitting there with the television remote and like, oh, geez, the remote's not working. You don't just sit there forever. You get up and fix the remote or fix the TV or do something about it, and that's exactly it. I'm not telling people they ought to go out and vote in the existing system. The existing system sucks. It's absolutely a fundamentally unequal structure for allocating power across our society. And we've got to change that. We don't have to participate in it. We've got to change it. Change it so it is an equal system of equal representation. And once it's that, then people have a reason to turn up to vote. But right now, why would you? I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, except it does matter what you do to change the system so that it begins to make sense.
To learn more about the New Hampshire Rebellion, check out nhrebellion.org. And to stay up to date on the film Killswitch, coming out later this summer, check out killswitchthefilm.com.